Life rarely changes in a single moment. Most transformations do not begin with loud decisions or dramatic actions. They begin quietly, almost invisibly, inside the mind. A thought appears. It seems small, harmless, easy to ignore. But over time, that thought repeats itself. It becomes familiar. It shapes how we see the world. And slowly, without us even noticing, it begins shaping the direction of our lives. As children, many of us grow up believing that life happens from the outside inward. We believe success comes from luck, wealth, or opportunity. We believe happiness comes from finding the right situation. We believe failure comes from bad circumstances. And for many years, this belief feels true. We look around and see people living different lives, and we assume their reality is determined by the world around them. But as time passes, something interesting begins to happen. We start noticing patterns. We see people who face similar situations but respond in completely different ways. Two people can experience the same difficulty, yet one grows stronger while the other feels defeated. Two people can receive the same opportunity, yet one uses it wisely while the other wastes it. And slowly, a deeper question begins to form: what truly separates these outcomes? What if the difference is not the situation itself, but the way a person thinks about it? Today's story explores that question. It explores the quiet force that operates behind every action, every decision, and every result. It explores the invisible power that shapes habits, builds character, and determines destiny. That power is thought. Hey everyone, welcome back to Inspired Pages. On this channel, we explore books that help us understand life, human nature, discipline, emotional strength, and the deeper patterns shaping our everyday experiences. In our previous video, we explored powerful lessons about responsibility and growth, learning that life becomes meaningful when we face difficulty instead of avoiding it. Today, we move into another timeless work, one that focuses not on external struggle, but on the inner world that controls everything we do. Today's book is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. This book is small in size, but enormous in meaning. It does not contain long stories or complicated theories. Instead, it presents a simple yet profound truth: a person becomes what they think about repeatedly. Not occasionally, not once in a while, but consistently over time. At first, this idea may sound too simple to be powerful. After all, thoughts seem temporary. They come and go quickly. Some appear and disappear within seconds. It is easy to believe that thoughts are harmless, that they do not carry weight, that they do not shape reality. But James Allen challenges that assumption. He suggests that thoughts are not random sparks that vanish without consequence. Thoughts are seeds. And like seeds planted into soil, they do not disappear. They take root. They grow. They produce results. Imagine standing in front of a piece of land. At first, the soil looks empty. Nothing seems to exist there. But if seeds are planted beneath the surface, time begins working silently. Roots form. Growth begins. And eventually, something visible rises from the ground. The same process happens inside the human mind. Every thought planted into the mind becomes part of the mental soil. Some thoughts are planted intentionally. Others appear automatically through habit. But whether we notice them or not, those thoughts continue growing beneath the surface. If positive thoughts are planted, thoughts of patience, discipline, gratitude, and determination, they begin shaping behavior in powerful ways. They create actions that lead to progress. They build habits that lead to success. Over time, they create results that seem almost natural. But if negative thoughts dominate, thoughts of fear, resentment, doubt, jealousy, or laziness, they also grow. They create hesitation. They encourage avoidance. They produce actions that weaken progress. And eventually, they create outcomes that feel frustrating or painful. James Allen describes the mind as a garden. In a well-cared-for garden, plants are chosen carefully. Seeds are planted with intention. Weeds are removed regularly. The soil is protected and nourished. Over time, beauty appears. But in a neglected garden, weeds grow freely. No one removes harmful plants. Seeds fall randomly without control. Slowly, disorder replaces beauty. The human mind operates the same way. If thoughts are left unattended, negative patterns naturally appear. Worry spreads. Fear multiplies. Doubt becomes familiar. Without discipline, the mind becomes crowded with unhelpful ideas. But when thoughts are chosen carefully, something powerful begins to happen. Order replaces chaos. Clarity replaces confusion. Strength replaces weakness. This understanding leads to one of the most important ideas in the book, responsibility. Many people spend years blaming circumstances for their difficulties. They blame their environment. They blame their upbringing. They blame their education. They blame other people. Sometimes these factors truly influence life. No one lives in complete isolation from external forces. But James Allen invites us to look deeper. He explains that circumstances do not create character, they reveal character. Think about moments of pressure in your own life. Moments when something unexpected happened. Moments when plans failed or obstacles appeared. During those moments, reactions appeared automatically. Perhaps frustration surfaced. Perhaps fear appeared. Or perhaps determination emerged. Those reactions did not come from the outside world. They came from inside. They came from patterns of thought developed over time. This realization can feel uncomfortable, because it removes excuses. It removes the belief that life is entirely controlled by external forces. But at the same time, it creates something incredibly valuable: power. Because if your thoughts shape your reactions, and your reactions shape your actions, then your thoughts shape your life. And if thoughts can be shaped intentionally, then life can be guided intentionally. This does not mean everything becomes easy. It does not mean problems disappear. But it does mean you gain influence over your direction. James Allen also explains that every action begins as a thought. Before a person speaks, a thought forms. Before a decision is made, a thought appears. Before a habit develops, repeated thoughts create familiarity. Think about habits that exist in daily life. Habits of waking early or staying up late. Habits of exercising or avoiding movement. Habits of studying or procrastinating. Each of these habits began with repeated thinking. A person who constantly thinks, "I will do this later," develops procrastination. A person who repeatedly thinks, "I must improve," develops discipline. Thought becomes behavior. Behavior becomes character. Character becomes destiny. This chain is simple, but powerful. And yet, many people overlook it. They focus only on visible results, ignoring the invisible process that created those results. They see success and assume luck played the biggest role. They see failure and assume circumstances caused it. But rarely do they examine the thinking patterns that led to those outcomes. James Allen encourages readers to become observers of their own minds. Not in a harsh or judgmental way, but in a curious way. He invites us to notice what thoughts repeat most frequently. To observe which ideas dominate attention. To recognize which beliefs guide behavior. Because awareness creates choice. And choice creates change. When you become aware of repeated negative thinking, you gain the ability to interrupt it. When you recognize harmful beliefs, you gain the opportunity to replace them. When you notice patterns of fear or doubt, you gain the chance to introduce courage and clarity. This process does not happen instantly. Just as gardens take time to grow, minds take time to change. Old habits do not disappear overnight. Negative thoughts do not vanish immediately. But with patience, consistent effort produces visible transformation. This brings us to another important truth introduced in the book, the relationship between thought and circumstance. James Allen suggests that the conditions of life often reflect the conditions of the mind. Not perfectly, and not instantly, but consistently over time. A person who believes improvement is possible begins noticing opportunities. They pay attention to possibilities. They prepare themselves for growth. But a person who believes improvement is impossible begins ignoring opportunity. They assume effort will fail. They avoid action before trying. Over time, these patterns shape reality. Not through magic, but through repetition. Thought leads to action. Action leads to habit. Habit leads to result. And result reinforces belief. This cycle continues until thinking changes. Many people remain trapped inside patterns created years earlier, simply because they never question their thoughts. They accept old beliefs as truth, even when those beliefs limit growth. James Allen reminds us that thoughts are not fixed. They can be trained. They can be redirected. They can be strengthened. Just like muscles become stronger through exercise, the mind becomes stronger through discipline. And once the mind becomes disciplined, life begins changing in powerful ways. But before transformation becomes visible, something else must happen first: understanding. Understanding that life does not begin with action. It begins with thought. Understanding that life begins with thought is only the first step. The next step is even more challenging, because it asks us to look honestly at the connection between our thinking and the conditions we experience. Many people move through life believing their situation is separate from their inner world. They believe circumstances happen randomly, without connection to their mindset. But James Allen suggests something deeper, that the outer world often reflects the inner world in ways we do not immediately notice. Think about two people facing the same problem. Imagine both of them lose an opportunity they were hoping for. One person reacts with bitterness. They blame others. They replay the disappointment repeatedly in their mind. They convince themselves that nothing ever works in their favor. Slowly, that belief shapes their future actions. They stop trying. They hesitate when new opportunities appear. They carry resentment into new situations. Over time, their world begins to feel smaller, more limited, more discouraging. Now imagine the second person facing the same disappointment. Instead of blaming others, they pause and reflect. They ask themselves what can be learned from the experience. They examine their mistakes honestly. They look for ways to improve. They hold on to the belief that new opportunities will appear. Because of this mindset, they continue preparing themselves. They remain alert to possibilities. And eventually, when another chance appears, they are ready to take it. The difference between these two lives is not the problem itself. It is the pattern of thinking that follows the problem. James Allen explains that circumstances do not control the person as much as the person's thoughts control their response to circumstances. When thoughts remain negative, reactions become weak. When thoughts remain constructive, reactions become strong. And over time, these reactions accumulate into results. This idea leads to one of the most powerful truths in the book, that responsibility begins in the mind. Many people misunderstand responsibility. They believe responsibility means blaming themselves for everything that goes wrong. But James Allen does not describe responsibility as guilt. He describes it as ownership. Ownership of thoughts. Ownership of reactions. Ownership of choices. When a person accepts responsibility for their thinking, they gain control over their direction. They stop waiting for life to change before changing themselves. Instead, they begin changing their inner world, trusting that the outer world will gradually follow. This shift from blame to responsibility is one of the most important turning points in personal growth. Think about how often people say, "If only things were different, my life would improve. If only the job were better. If only the environment were easier. If only other people behaved differently." These thoughts feel understandable, but they also create helplessness. Because if change depends entirely on external forces, then progress feels impossible. But when responsibility moves inward, power moves inward as well. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" a responsible thinker begins asking, "What can I do differently?" Instead of waiting for the world to change, they begin preparing themselves for change. James Allen reminds us that circumstances are not enemies. They are teachers. Difficult situations often reveal hidden weaknesses. They expose habits we may not realize exist. They show us where discipline is missing and where growth is needed. Without difficulty, these weaknesses might remain invisible. This leads to another important theme in the book, suffering as a teacher. Most people naturally avoid suffering. Pain feels uncomfortable, unwanted, and unfair. When hardship appears, the first instinct is often resistance. People ask why life must be difficult. They wonder why struggle appears without warning. They feel frustrated when progress feels slow. But James Allen suggests that suffering carries meaning. He explains that suffering often emerges when thoughts and actions move out of harmony with truth. When a person repeatedly holds harmful thoughts, such as anger, dishonesty, greed, or selfishness, those thoughts create inner conflict. Over time, that conflict becomes visible in the form of stress, tension, or difficulty. This does not mean suffering is punishment. It means suffering is feedback. Just like physical pain signals injury, emotional or life struggles often signal imbalance. They reveal areas where thinking needs adjustment. They point toward habits that need correction. Imagine touching a hot surface. The pain that follows is not meant to harm you. It is meant to protect you. It warns you to move your hand away before deeper damage occurs. Life difficulties function in a similar way. They signal the need for reflection. They invite learning. They encourage change. Instead of viewing suffering as meaningless, James Allen encourages viewing it as instruction. Consider moments in your own life when challenges forced growth. Perhaps a failure taught discipline. Perhaps disappointment revealed the importance of patience. Perhaps difficulty strengthened resilience. These lessons rarely appear during comfort. They appear during struggle. This is why suffering, though painful, often becomes the foundation of strength. When people refuse to learn from difficulty, suffering repeats itself. The same mistakes appear again and again. The same frustrations return repeatedly. But when people learn from difficulty, suffering becomes transformation. This understanding requires honesty. Honesty with oneself about patterns of thinking. Honesty about repeated reactions. Honesty about habits that produce unwanted results. James Allen emphasizes that transformation begins not by changing circumstances, but by changing thought patterns. This process requires patience, because deeply rooted thoughts do not disappear quickly. Just as a tree with deep roots cannot be removed instantly, long-standing beliefs take time to replace. But with consistent effort, new thoughts gradually take hold. Over time, these new thoughts produce new actions. New actions create new habits. New habits create new results. And new results create confidence. This slow process is what makes growth sustainable. Another powerful insight from the book is the idea that thoughts attract similar thoughts. When negative thinking dominates attention, the mind becomes more sensitive to negativity. It begins noticing problems more easily than solutions. It becomes focused on limitations rather than possibilities. But when positive thinking becomes habitual, attention shifts toward opportunity. The mind begins searching for improvement. It becomes creative instead of defensive. This shift does not happen because reality changes immediately. It happens because perception changes. Perception shapes reaction. Reaction shapes action. Action shapes outcome. Imagine walking into a room expecting rejection. Your posture becomes tense. Your voice becomes uncertain. Your thoughts anticipate failure. These reactions influence behavior in subtle ways. Now imagine entering the same room expecting possibility. Your posture becomes confident. Your voice becomes steady. Your thoughts remain focused. These differences may seem small, but over time, they produce different results. James Allen encourages readers to become aware of this subtle connection between thinking and experience. He suggests that people often live unconsciously, repeating thoughts without examining them. They accept beliefs inherited from past experiences without questioning their usefulness. They assume their thinking is fixed, when in reality it is flexible. The moment awareness begins, change becomes possible. When you notice repeated negative thoughts, you gain the opportunity to challenge them. When you recognize harmful patterns, you gain the chance to replace them. When you observe fear dominating attention, you gain the ability to introduce courage. This process requires effort, but it also creates freedom. Freedom from automatic reactions. Freedom from limiting beliefs. Freedom from cycles of repeated frustration. James Allen describes this transformation as mental cultivation, the careful shaping of thought. Just as farmers cultivate land to produce crops, individuals must cultivate their minds to produce results. Without cultivation, weeds grow naturally. Without attention, negative patterns spread easily. But with effort, clarity appears. With discipline, strength grows. With awareness, life begins changing direction. And slowly, almost quietly, the connection between thought and circumstance becomes undeniable. Because once thinking changes, life begins responding in new ways. After understanding the connection between thoughts and circumstances, the next step in growth becomes clear. Thoughts must not only be observed, they must be directed. Without direction, even the strongest mind can drift. Thoughts move from one worry to another, from one distraction to the next. Days pass without clear progress, not because effort is missing, but because focus is scattered. James Allen explains that one of the greatest dangers in life is aimlessness. When a person lives without purpose, their thoughts wander endlessly. They chase temporary desires, react to temporary emotions, and follow whatever feels easiest at the moment. This kind of living may feel comfortable in the short term, but over time it creates confusion. Without purpose, actions lack meaning. Without direction, progress feels slow and uncertain. Think about how different life feels when there is a clear goal. When a person decides to improve their health, their daily decisions begin to change. They become more aware of what they eat. They become more willing to exercise. They begin paying attention to sleep and rest. The goal creates direction, and direction creates discipline. The same principle applies to every area of life. When a person chooses a purpose, their thoughts begin organizing themselves around that purpose. Instead of drifting randomly, the mind begins focusing on solutions. Energy becomes concentrated instead of scattered. Decisions become easier because they are guided by intention. James Allen describes purpose as the foundation of meaningful living. Without purpose, effort feels exhausting because there is no clear destination. But with purpose, Even difficult tasks feel meaningful because they lead somewhere valuable. Imagine a ship traveling across the ocean without a destination. The wind pushes it in random directions. The waves carry it wherever they wish. Days pass, but no progress is made toward anything specific. Now imagine the same ship with a clear destination. The captain studies the map. The crew adjusts the sails. Every movement has direction. Every action serves a purpose. Life without purpose resembles the drifting ship. Life with purpose resembles the guided journey. Many people hesitate to choose a purpose because they fear failure. They worry about choosing the wrong direction. They wonder whether their efforts will succeed. But James Allen reminds us that uncertainty is not a reason to remain still. It is a reason to begin. Purpose does not need to be perfect at the beginning. It only needs to be clear enough to guide action. Even small goals create movement. Even simple intentions create progress. Once purpose exists, thoughts begin aligning naturally. Another powerful idea in this section of the book is vision, the ability to imagine a better future before it becomes reality. Every achievement begins as an idea. Before buildings exist, they are designed. Before inventions are created, they are imagined. Before success appears, it is visualized in the mind. Vision gives shape to purpose. Without vision, goals remain vague. But with vision, goals become visible. The mind begins seeing possibilities that were previously hidden. It becomes easier to take action because the destination feels real. Think about moments in history when great changes occurred. Innovations that transformed industries. Movements that improved societies. Discoveries that expanded knowledge. In each case, someone first imagined what did not yet exist. They held on to that vision long enough to transform imagination into reality. James Allen encourages readers to hold positive visions firmly in their minds. Not as fantasies, but as guiding images. A vision of becoming disciplined encourages disciplined action. A vision of becoming knowledgeable encourages consistent learning. A vision of becoming kind encourages compassionate behavior. Over time, these visions influence daily choices. Small decisions accumulate into large outcomes. But vision alone is not enough. Many people imagine success, but abandon effort when difficulty appears. They feel motivated at the beginning, but lose confidence when progress slows. They expect results quickly, and when results do not appear immediately, discouragement replaces enthusiasm. James Allen emphasizes persistence as the bridge between vision and achievement. Persistence means continuing effort even when results feel distant. It means maintaining belief when progress seems slow. It means trusting the process of growth, even when the outcome is not yet visible. Think about planting a seed in soil. For days, nothing appears on the surface. It may feel as if nothing is happening. But beneath the ground, roots are forming. Growth is taking place silently. With patience, a small sprout eventually breaks through the surface. Achievement works the same way. Effort often produces invisible progress before visible results. People who quit too soon never see the growth that was already beginning. People who continue patiently eventually witness transformation. Another important idea connected to persistence is faith, not necessarily religious faith, but faith in the process of growth. Faith in effort. Faith in learning. Faith in improvement. When a person believes their effort matters, they remain consistent. When they trust that progress takes time, they become patient. When they understand that setbacks are part of learning, they become resilient. Without faith, discouragement becomes overwhelming. With faith, determination becomes stronger. James Allen also speaks about the dangers of doubt. Doubt weakens effort. It whispers that failure is inevitable. It suggests that effort is meaningless. It encourages hesitation when action is needed. But confidence grows when doubt is challenged. Confidence does not appear automatically. It develops through repeated action. Each small success strengthens belief. Each completed task builds trust in one's abilities. Over time, confidence becomes a habit. And habits shape destiny. Another lesson from this section of the book is the importance of discipline in maintaining vision. It is easy to feel inspired at the beginning of a journey. Motivation appears naturally when excitement is high. But lasting progress depends not on inspiration, but on discipline. Discipline means continuing effort even when motivation fades. It means staying committed when distractions appear. It means choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. Many people fail to achieve their goals not because they lack talent, but because they lack consistency. They begin with enthusiasm, but abandon effort when difficulty increases. They dream of success, but avoid the daily work required to achieve it. James Allen reminds us that success belongs to those who remain steady. Not those who move quickly, but those who move consistently. Small steps taken repeatedly create powerful momentum. Daily effort builds lasting results. Another important insight from this section is that setbacks are not signs of failure, they are signs of learning. Every attempt teaches something valuable. Every mistake reveals a weakness that can be corrected. Every challenge develops strength that cannot be gained through comfort alone. People who fear mistakes often avoid action entirely. They hesitate, waiting for perfect conditions. But perfect conditions rarely appear. Growth requires movement, even when uncertainty exists. James Allen encourages readers to accept mistakes as teachers rather than enemies. When mistakes are studied instead of feared, improvement becomes faster. When setbacks are viewed as lessons instead of disasters, confidence grows. This mindset transforms obstacles into opportunities. Instead of stopping progress, challenges begin strengthening it. As purpose becomes clearer and vision becomes stronger, life begins to feel more meaningful. Actions feel intentional instead of random. Effort feels valuable instead of exhausting. Progress becomes visible not only in achievements, but in character. And slowly, the connection between thought, purpose, and achievement becomes undeniable. Because when thoughts are guided by purpose, and purpose is supported by persistence, transformation becomes inevitable. As purpose becomes clearer and effort becomes consistent, another transformation begins to take place, one that is less visible, but deeply powerful. It is the development of calmness. James Allen describes calmness as one of the highest achievements a person can reach. Not because calmness removes problems, but because calmness changes the way problems are faced. Many people believe strength is loud. They imagine strength as force, speed, or dominance. They believe powerful individuals react quickly and aggressively. But true strength often appears in silence. It appears in patience. It appears in the ability to remain steady when chaos surrounds them. Think about moments in life when emotions rise quickly. A disagreement turns into anger. A delay creates frustration. Unexpected news creates anxiety. In these moments, the mind feels crowded. Thoughts race. Reactions become impulsive. Words are spoken without reflection. Decisions are made without clarity. But a calm mind responds differently. Instead of reacting immediately, it pauses. Instead of rushing into emotion, it observes. Instead of allowing anger or fear to take control, it creates space for understanding. This pause may last only seconds, but it creates enormous difference. A calm person is not someone who avoids difficulty. A calm person is someone who has learned to master their reactions to difficulty. James Allen explains that calmness is the result of disciplined thinking practiced over time. It does not appear suddenly. It grows gradually, like a tree gaining strength year after year. Each moment of patience strengthens it. Each moment of reflection deepens it. Each moment of self-control reinforces it. Consider how calmness affects decision-making. When emotions dominate, decisions often become rushed. Fear encourages avoidance. Anger encourages conflict. Impatience encourages mistakes. But when calmness guides the mind, decisions become thoughtful. Problems are examined carefully. Options are considered clearly. Solutions become visible that would otherwise remain hidden. Calmness protects wisdom. This is why leaders, teachers, and wise individuals often display quiet confidence rather than loud reactions. Their calmness does not mean weakness. It means control. Control over thoughts. Control over emotions. Control over behavior. James Allen describes this level of control as self-mastery. Self-mastery is not about controlling others. It is about controlling oneself. It is the ability to guide thoughts intentionally, rather than allowing them to wander without direction. It is the ability to choose reactions carefully, rather than reacting automatically. Most people live reactively. They respond to situations without awareness. They allow emotions to dictate behavior. They blame circumstances for their reactions. But self-mastery changes that pattern. A self-mastered person becomes deliberate. They choose patience instead of anger. They choose understanding instead of judgment. They choose discipline instead of laziness. These choices may seem small individually, but repeated daily, they create powerful change. James Allen also reminds us that calmness influences not only personal growth, but relationships as well. A calm individual creates stability for others. Their presence reduces tension. Their words carry weight because they are spoken thoughtfully. Think about people you trust deeply. Often, they are not the loudest voices in the room. They are the ones who remain steady when situations become difficult. They are the ones who listen carefully before speaking. They are the ones who respond thoughtfully rather than reacting emotionally. Their calmness builds confidence. It creates trust. It encourages cooperation. In contrast, constant emotional reactions create instability. People feel uncertain around unpredictable behavior. Communication becomes difficult. Relationships weaken. This is why calmness is not only a personal strength, but a social strength. Another powerful insight from the final section of the book is the connection between calmness and clarity. When the mind is filled with noise, worry, doubt, fear, clarity disappears. Thoughts become scattered. Decisions become confusing. Problems feel larger than they truly are. But when the mind becomes calm, clarity returns. Solutions appear more easily. Challenges feel manageable. Confidence increases. This clarity allows individuals to move forward with purpose instead of hesitation. James Allen also explains that calmness creates inner peace. Peace does not mean life becomes perfect. It means the mind remains balanced even when life becomes uncertain. It means external events lose the power to disturb inner stability. This inner peace becomes a source of quiet strength. Instead of reacting to every problem with fear, a peaceful mind approaches challenges with confidence. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by uncertainty, it remains grounded. Over time, this peace becomes visible to others. People begin seeking advice from calm individuals. They trust their judgment. They respect their composure. They feel comforted by their presence. And this influence creates positive change not only within the individual, but within the community around them. As the book moves toward its conclusion, James Allen returns to the central idea that has guided every chapter, that life reflects thought. Not perfectly. Not instantly. But faithfully over time. He reminds us that thoughts shape character, character shapes behavior, and behavior shapes destiny. This process happens quietly, often unnoticed, but always consistently. Every thought contributes to the person we become. Every belief strengthens or weakens our future. Every moment of awareness creates opportunity for change. This understanding carries both responsibility and hope. Responsibility, because it reminds us that our thoughts matter deeply. They are not meaningless. They are not powerless. They are tools capable of building or destroying. But hope, because it reminds us that change is always possible. No matter how long negative patterns have existed, new thoughts can be introduced. No matter how many mistakes have occurred, new habits can be formed. No matter how difficult circumstances feel, new directions can be chosen. Transformation begins with awareness. Awareness leads to choice. Choice leads to action. Action leads to change. And change leads to growth. Perhaps the most powerful message of this book is that the mind is not a prison, it is a workshop. Inside this workshop, ideas are created. Beliefs are shaped. Futures are built. And just as a craftsman improves their skill through practice, individuals improve their lives through disciplined thinking. James Allen encourages readers to treat their thoughts with care, to observe them carefully, to guide them intentionally, to remove harmful patterns and nurture constructive ones. This daily effort may feel small, but over time, it produces extraordinary results. A single positive thought repeated daily becomes a powerful belief. A single disciplined action repeated daily becomes a strong habit. A single habit repeated over years becomes character. And character shapes destiny. As we step back and reflect on the message of this book, one truth becomes clear: the life we live tomorrow is being built by the thoughts we think today. Not by chance. Not by accident. But by consistent attention. If thoughts are filled with fear, tomorrow becomes uncertain. If thoughts are filled with determination, tomorrow becomes promising. If thoughts are filled with patience, tomorrow becomes stable. This understanding invites reflection. What thoughts dominate your daily life? What beliefs guide your decisions? What patterns repeat themselves again and again? These questions do not require immediate answers, but they encourage awareness. Because awareness is the beginning of transformation. If this message resonates with you, if it encourages you to examine your thinking more carefully, then the lessons of this book are already beginning to take root. Growth does not require dramatic change overnight. It requires steady attention to small details, especially the details inside the mind. Thought by thought. Choice by choice. Day by day. That is how transformation happens. And perhaps that is the true legacy of As a Man Thinketh, a reminder that the greatest power we possess is not external wealth, not social status, not physical strength, but the quiet ability to guide our own thinking. Because once thinking changes, direction changes. Once direction changes, actions change. And once actions change, life begins to transform. If this message made you pause and reflect, if it made you notice the patterns shaping your daily life, then take a moment to continue the journey. On Inspired Pages, we explore books that challenge our thinking, strengthen our discipline, and guide us toward meaningful growth. If you found value in this message, subscribe to Inspired Pages. Share this video with someone who feels stuck, someone searching for direction, or someone ready to take control of their inner world. Because sometimes the most powerful changes do not begin outside. They begin inside the mind. This is Inspired Pages. Keep thinking clearly, keep growing patiently, and keep building the life you truly want.